Good afternoon, everybody. If you are eating, please feel free to keep eating. I know we've still got a few folks going through the line, and hopefully you were able to grab a cookie. Those looked really, really good. We want to spend lunch. As you heard, we're going to do a little bit of a working lunch, but I promise you won't have to work too hard. If you will, I know you probably got one hand on your fork right now, but with the other hand, you'll grab your phone. Hopefully y'all have been kind of participating this morning on Twitter and other places, but now we want a chance to kind of interact here in the room. So just we'll pull that up in just a second, but I guess might be helpful to introduce myself. My name is Rebecca Hunt. I'm a public service faculty member at the Institute of Government, and excited to be with y'all today. Many of you probably know my colleague Greg Wilson at the Institute of Government. He was with y'all last year. So for those of you who were here last year, this will kind of run similar to it than it did last year. So what we're going to do, if you have been at an Institute of Government event before, you've probably seen us use Slido. So we're going to use that this morning, or this afternoon. Oop. Yep. Here we go. Okay, so if you pull your phone out and pop it up there, you're going to get a QR code here. And it should take you straight into the event. If you're having trouble with that, you can type in slido.com, and then it'll ask you for an event code, and you'll use Talent 2024. Okay, so give y'all a second to get in there. And when you get in, you should start to see a question pop up. And the first one, we're going to go easy here, is multiple choice. Once you've gotten into Slido, the first question is just going to ask you what group best represents you. If you're still getting connected on Slido, that QR code will stay up there on the side the entire time. So we want to get as many folks on Slido and kind of chatting with us here over lunch. And I realized we came on real strong with the red and black, but after this morning, we felt that we had to make our presence known. Sorry for that, for those of you who may be of other allegiances in the room, but we are excited to be with y'all and to collect some data and to have some conversation. So you'll see up at the top right, we've got about 108 folks participating. So if you're still getting logged on, grab your phone, check out that QR code, and we can get you going. If you're having technology problems, feel free to lean over to your neighbor, see if they can help you. Or actually, one of my colleagues, Bennett Hardy in the back, throw your hand up. He can run around and help get you on Slido if you're having any problems. But thought it might be, we'll go ahead and, there we go. All right, so you can keep voting if you're in and haven't had a chance to vote, but wanted to kind of get a sense for where we're at in the room today. I know we did this kind of with hands earlier, but get some numbers here. We've got 33% of folks that are currently kind of logged in on Slido and voting that are in business, followed up very closely with about 26% in K-12 education. Got a really great showing from our nonprofits in the room, followed by Economic Development Chamber, and then a smaller group there in post-secondary and other. So excited to have such a diverse group. Give y'all just one more second here. Make sure your voice is up here. And we're gonna jump to some other ones. And you'll see some of these are going to be open text. They'll give you a chance to kind of type something in. Other ones will be multiple choice, and some will be ranking. So our next question is going to be open kind of text here. And really just want you to take a second before I flip to that question. And it's really going to ask you, what is your biggest takeaway so far from this morning? So maybe take a second before I open it up. Think about it. What so far? Is there something jotted down on your phone or on your agenda that's been a really big takeaway for you so far this morning? Or feel free to chat with your table for a second, and then I will open this up and we will kind of see what some of the takeaways have been. So this question is now open. Feel free to go ahead and start typing. We're not going to see results in real time just yet. I want to give you a minute to kind of think and share what your kind of biggest takeaway so far from the morning has been. So you should have an open text right now that is asking you, what is your biggest takeaway from the morning so far? If you're typing, feel free to keep typing, but I'm going to go ahead and start to show some of the results. I've got all the results up here, so I may read some things you're not seeing quite yet up there, but hopefully we'll get a chance to see all of these. So far we've got 73 folks voting here, but we've got a lot around partnership, a lot on data. We've got, let's see, community relations. And so these will continue as folks kind of chime in, continue to add to the top of the list. You'll also see words at the top that are really starting to kind of gel. So that's the number of times they've been listed here. I'm actually going to scroll all the way to the beginning, and I will tell you partnership, alignment, a lot of different pieces here around data information, a lot coming in around workforce. And I will tell you, Melissa, flex is coming up so much up here. So as you know, yesterday I was in Fitzgerald, and we got to walk around their beautiful new college and career academy. And I tell you, we walked in unexpected, and we picked up and talked to multiple flex students, and they were ready to go on the spot. One of them chased us down the hall with her business card to make sure that we saw her stuff on Instagram. And that girl had hustle, and 5 of us afterwards sitting around checking out her tennis shoes. And it was so cool. So these, are such an important thing. So we heard a little bit on AI. No one has the answer. We need to work together. Good relationships, ideas for alignment. You'll see industry coming up, partnership a lot. Students, a lot of focus on our students. So we're gonna scroll through. Y'all can continue to see what's coming in. Interactive and experiential learning, really important. I'm not gonna read through every single one, but y'all can see kind of what's popping up here. Talent retention. We haven't talked a whole lot about retention this morning, but definitely a piece of this. Reading skills, partnerships. Flex getting another shout out. Good things are happening. I love that. So much this morning was, there are so many good things happening, but how can we do even more here? Community relations. Humility and listening. We heard a lot about that this morning. Shifting landscapes here. Alignment, collaboration, co-ownership, and listening. I love that. All right. A lot of different workforce needs. Different tactics for different groups. So a lot of really cool things coming in for y'all. Y'all have been listening a lot. Hopefully you're taking a lot of notes and a lot of different things happening here. You're picking up a lot of resources and going back with some nuggets of things to listen for. If we want to hop back to the top and see what's come in these last few responses, and we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one here in just a second. Sorry to make you dizzy here. But we're starting to see a lot of kind of commonalities here around kind of what we were taking away from the morning. So that is really, really great. I'll give you 30 more seconds. If you haven't gotten your response in, you can do that now. All right, we're going to go ahead and hop on to our next question. This one's going to be a little different for you. So on your screen, you'll actually be getting two kind of questions here, and I did them this way because the first one has an other option, okay? So your first question that you're gonna be getting is to rank your top 3. So it gives you a list of some options, and how you do this is you click on the top 3 things, and then you can move them in order. And so you'll do that, and then if you choose other as one of those options, then it'll give you a follow-up to fill that in. But your options here, so your question is rank your top 3 in order of importance for achieving workforce success in Georgia, okay? And so these are some of the things that as our conversations in our work across the state, as well as in conversation with the Georgia Chamber, these were some things that we've kind of heard. So a defined statewide strategy, reaching untapped labor pools, short-term training and credentialing programs, aligned long-term pipeline programs, large-scale investments, local community strategies, foundational needs like early learning and literacy, earlier career exposure, recruiting additional workers from outside Georgia, or other. So you have that list. We want you to pick your top 3 on those lists that you think are really pivotal for us to have kind of overall success on workforce. We know we're having success in pockets, in regions, but as we think about Georgia as a whole and workforce development, what do we need to be focused on in order to make sure that as a state we're succeeding? So you're gonna pick the top 3, and you're gonna move them around here, and I'll show you. Okay, well, it doesn't want to let me show y'all the results, so you're gonna have to trust me on this one, I think, unless I can get it fixed up here. Give me a second. Y'all keep voting on this one. Let me see if I can make it show y'all the results. Aha. Oh, we had it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so our top 3 that we have kind of gotten, they're moving around here, you'll see as folks continue to vote. But some of our top areas that we feel like are really important are foundational needs. So Dana got her message across this morning on literacy. We haven't talked a whole lot about early childhood and kind of childcare, but we know that's a big piece of this workforce puzzle right now in the state of Georgia. So that's something that we're really interested in, as well as aligned long-term pathways. So I'm looking at Dr. Wall here and some others in kind of that space, thinking about what we're doing with our K-12 and our CTAE. Earlier career exposure, obviously built into some of that. And then local community strategies, really interesting to think about how as a state we can succeed if our local communities, our local regions are succeeding, and really taking some of the advice that Anna gave earlier around, doing that research, figuring it out, and then creating a strategy and running with it. So you'll see they'll continue to move. Feel free to keep voting. I know this one's a little harder to vote on. But I do want to also make sure I show you what the other was. Okay, so I gave the option of also other. So if it wasn't one of those things, these are some things that people suggested. So faster training options, retaining talent, maybe some support of those existing best practices. How can we continue to get those things out there? Things like Be Pro, Be Proud. improved employee wellness initiatives, right? So making sure that, I can't remember who it was this morning that said that wellness program, and that we're really kind of making sure our employees are not only good employees, but are healthy humans and can be supportive that way as well. And then how do we maybe combine some of these things, right? How do we say that those foundational skills and that awareness, how do we do that at the same time and we don't have to say it's and or? It's not and, but it's or. So we got a lot of options here for some others. So feel free to keep typing here. I'm going to hop back up and see if our poll has changed at all. And it looks like the group has kind of settled on our top 3 here around foundational needs, early career exposure, and then local community strategies, which I think fits so well with the theme for today around workforce preparedness, kind of really thinking about those. What I think is interesting is as we've done our work across the state, there's been a lot of conversation around how do we recruit folks to Georgia? But if you look at this, it's actually pretty far down on the list. And I think that's hard to do. And a lot of communities are saying that's something we're interested in, but we don't really know how to go out and recruit folks from another community. I heard about a community, or a college actually, in New Orleans that said, you know what, we're going to send a postcard out to all of our graduates right before Mardi Gras, tell them to come back, we're going to host a Mardi Gras party for them, and we're going to share all of the opportunities that exist in this community to try and get them to come back. And I was thinking about that, and I said, we've got a lot of really cool things coming to Georgia in the next little bit. We've got FIFA World Cup coming. We've got all of these things. How can we, as a state, leverage those and get people excited about the opportunity to come back to Georgia, or to come to Georgia? But, as a whole, I think our group isn't thinking that big picture, that out there. They're really thinking about what works locally and how do we focus on the basics. All right. We're going to hop to another open one here. We've heard a lot this morning around kind of workforce preparedness. And I know, depending on who you talk to, that can kind of mean different things, right? For our educators, that may mean one thing. For our business folks, that may mean another thing. So I just want to get a sense from the room, from your perspective, where you sit in the workforce ecosystem, what does it mean to be successfully prepared for the workforce? Okay? So take a second, think about it. What does it mean to be successfully prepared for the workforce? If you're typing, feel free to keep typing. I'm just going to go ahead and show y'all what's coming in. Okay? These are going to be a little harder for me to run through quickly. They're a little longer here. But those words at the top, right, skills, becoming really important. I know we talked this morning about, different education levels and what that means. But also there's this conversation around kind of, yes, that's a flag for what skills you have, but also how do we do some skills-based, competency-based hiring? And this kind of speaks to that around skills here. So I'm going to start at the bottom and start reading. So in order for us to be successfully prepared for the workforce, we want folks to have the right attitude. We want them to have employability skills. We want them to have skills training, ability to contribute on day one, the right education, transferable skills, a strong sense of self, which I love, especially with that entrepreneurship stuff we've been talking about. You might not have the exact right skill, but if you know who you are and you know what you're good at, maybe that goes a long ways. We've heard a lot around technology, understanding and using that. A lot here around kind of communication as well. How do we communicate? How do we have those soft skills? Skills that are aligned to the needs in our area. Stuart's getting a lot of shout outs for his STEM 2.0. And for those of you who may have been at our workforce conference that we host every November, he shared that there, and a lot of us resonated with that. I have the exact same picture, and it keeps coming up in our brain as we talk about this. I love it. Aligning talent, skills, and passion. Okay, feel free to take another minute here. Make sure you get your voice heard on what it means to be successfully prepared for the workforce. And then I think we've got just 2 more questions here I want to get some thoughts on before we head into our next panel. Some folks here getting really specific. Critical thinker, problem solving, flexible, work ethic, communicator. Somebody who can kind of accomplish a goal or a task. Giving students the tools they need to succeed outside of the classroom. I love that analogy of students are now coming to college to figure out what goes in the toolbox so that they can go out and kind of build what they need afterwards. Okay. If you'll scroll back up all the way to the top, we'll see what new ones have come in before we jump on to our next question. Real world experience, I love to see that up here, but we're hearing a lot around specific skills, employability skills, and that alignment. Okay, well, I think this has been really interesting to kind of see the differing, but also a lot of similarities around what it means to be prepared for the workforce. So we've got one more multiple choice question here, and then one more open-ended. So we're gonna go ahead and hop in to this. This is going to be another one where you will get a multiple choice first, and then if you chose other, you'll get a follow-up question to tell us what other. And so, as we think about today, I know we've still got a few more panels this afternoon, but as we think about what it means to kind of have collaboration on workforce development, I'm curious, and you can think about this from the state perspective or your regional or local perspective, but what is the greatest barrier to community collaboration on workforce? Okay, and so the options here were data needed to illustrate the need, communication challenges, lack of defined strategy, no single point person, funding or other resources, differing priorities, or other. So if you will just, this is a choose one, so I know it may be hard, we're not ranking here, but choose the one that you feel like, from your perspective, is kind of maybe hindering or the biggest barrier to collaboration on workforce development. And if you choose other, you do have that option to tell us what that is, and I'll hop over to those in just a second, but I want to make sure everyone has a chance to vote here for their top barrier. I'll tell you, I think Dana and I are probably pretty sad to see data at the bottom, but maybe we've just done such a good job on the data that folks don't need it anymore. They already know where to find it and kind of what those issues are going after. But I am also somebody who tends to lead with data, but maybe we've done that really well and we understand what the needs are, and now we're really kind of shifting towards that collaboration and towards getting that defined strategy happening at our region. You see those first two really kind of hopping back and forth, and I would say that third one around point person, you might not know that you don't have a point person until you get that defined strategy. Usually once you get that strategy, it's really imperative to make sure you have a point person to lead that. But really interesting here, hopefully we're able to overcome those differing priorities and set a strategy. So all those top three really kind of go hand in hand. And feel free to keep looking on that one, but I wanted to show you what some of the others were. So we said if you didn't feel like that was the top barrier, but it was something else, let us know. And so lack of shared leadership, kind of this trust and scarcity mindset that we can only, it's my boundaries and I only have so much, and that by maybe collaborating, we're gonna lose some of that. So territories, silos, lack of clear vision, conflicting priorities. Okay, so a lot here around silos and kind of, folks are maybe working on their own and they feel like they're already doing a lot here and they're overburdened, and maybe it's trying to figure out a way to make these workforce strategies be things that are serving everybody and that we're not having to just all work really, really hard on our own. But a lot of good things coming in here. I will hop back over and see if our top list has changed at all, but it has not. We're still kind of living in this defined priority space. So I think a lot of folks could take a page out of Anna's book around kind of doing that research and then creating a strategy. So the last question, and I'm going to put it up here, is, here we go. Okay, here we go. Take a second. Don't jot anything down just yet. Take a second, and I know you're going to hear from a few more folks this afternoon, but what is one thing so far that you want to write down for yourself that you are going to do when you leave here today? We know that this is always great. You get to see friends, you get to meet new people, you get excited, but I know the emails are starting to come in, those phone calls, those voicemails, etc. But what is one thing you want to do? I wrote down this morning, I know y'all are probably looking at me and thinking that I use ChatGPT all the time. I do not have an account. So you know what? I'm going to take President Cabrera's suggestion from this morning, and I'm going to open a ChatGPT account. That's going to be mine for the day, is to go ahead and do that. Don't tell my boss that. If y'all know Greg, don't tell him that that's mine for today. But take a second and think about one thing. It can be you're going to call Misty at Be Pro, Be Proud and figure out getting on the schedule. It can be reaching out to somebody you've met. It can be kind of figuring out who needs to be at the table for a strategy. But take a second, put it up here, and then also create a calendar reminder in your phone for tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to go and do this thing that you have heard today that you want to take action on so far. And I want to see one from everybody. This number shouldn't be a lot lower than all of our other ones. One follow-up action item that you're going to take out of today . All right, I'm going to put it up there. Feel free to keep typing. I see we've got a lot of folks still typing. That's fine. But we're going to see what all's coming in. Share some information you've heard from folks. Encourage younger people to look into some of the stuff we've talked about. I love that. Identify 5 communities that are ready to establish cross-sector education and workforce development strategies. I love that. Connect with some folks you've heard from. I think I see Flex and Be Pro, Be Proud up there. We're excited about those. Recap this with your leadership team. I love this. Okay. Apparently some folks are going to start hitting Stuart up for some plant tours. Following up with some other resources that you've heard from today. I love that. I think, we've heard a lot of great resources and we'll continue to hear more resources throughout the afternoon. But hopefully all of you have some things that are kind of resonating with you, some data that you can share back with your leadership. Before I wrap up, I think we have one slide we're going to pop up that I wanted to share really quickly. Y'all can keep typing here. This will stay open. But I did want to kind of briefly mention some stuff that we at the Institute of Government, in partnership with a lot of other folks that are here, have been working on over the last few years. Y'all may be aware of some of them. But hopefully we'll hop up here. At the Institute of Government, over the last 5 years or so, we've produced 4 resource guides that are free and available, a lot of them through the really generous partnership and sponsorship of Georgia Power. So just want to make sure that we have a chance to share those with y'all. Some of them really focused on business, some really focused on education. And so those could be really great resources for you all moving forward. So hopefully we'll get those hopped up here in just just a second. I know Joseph's leading our next one, so maybe he can touch on some of them as well. But at this point, thank you all for sharing. I always think this is really helpful to kind of see what folks are gelling around for the day and kind of what's happening. So this is the slide I was talking about. These are our 4 guides that have recently been produced. Some of them, so we've got a planning guide for communities, the Georgia Alignment Toolkit for our high schools to think about how they align, our experiential learning guide, and then the last one we released actually in November of last year called Engaging the Future Workforce, and it's a guide for businesses. So all of them kind of pretty short, easy to replicate guides that we hope you will check out. So at this point, thank you all so much for having me, and hopefully the rest of the day is just as fruitful as this morning has been, as we saw in our Slido. So thank you all so much.